Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another EES webinar. Today, we are going to be going over the basics of the two mechanical packages. So we will be covering both the estimating and the PDF takeoff. Like I said, this is just to get you all up and running with the basics of the system. The database I am doing it on today will be the mechanical database. But if you are electrical biased, how you will actually use the system and exactly how it functions will be exactly the same. So please feel free to just stay and keep watching the video. It's only the database that would be any different. So let's all get into it then. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to get my screen all shared for you all. Okay, here we go. So you should be staring at my EES estimating software. So we've got the two softwares to go through today. We've got both the estimating and the PDF takeoff software. I am hosting this today on our cloud platform. I'm sort of hoping that the majority of people here today are also on the cloud platform as well. If not, and you do have this locally installed, I can show you obviously where the few little differences are, but the differences are, like I said, very few and minor. Okay. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the estimating software. We're going to create a job and go through a couple of processes in there. We'll then move across to actually do some takeoff on the PDF system, and then we'll import that back into the estimating. We'll get that all priced up. We'll apply all of our markups, and I'll show you how to produce out any documentation at the end of the project. So like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the estimating side. Right, so this is the first page, home page, load-in page, whatever way you would like to refer to it, basically. Okay, but this is what you're going to see when you first open up the software. So you have the ability to create new jobs or estimates, however, or quotations, however you'd like to refer to them. You can obviously go back and amend any existing ones, and you can also remove any of the existing ones if you no longer need them. Now, we're going to go into new, but I just want to give you a brief rundown of what's up there along the top first, okay? So this one I have left specifically sort of here for us today, just to sort of show you this, okay? So this being up here is basically telling me that my prices are out of date in my database, okay? Because I've not been keeping up to date with them. So all you would have to do your price updates is just click on price updates available. And especially if you're coming off from the old version of EES, this is going to be a lot easier to use than what it was previously. But you're just going to click in there, and then in here, tell you what update number that you're currently running on. So I'm running on 551, and the next available update is 556. Okay. So if I wanted to do that, all I'd have to do is press install price update, and that's going to go through that all in order and update all of the trade prices on the database. If I did untick this box, it would take me all the way through from start to the end, and I wouldn't have to do any additional clicking. Okay, so that's there for you there. Now, like I said, that's going to update all of your trade prices. That will not automatically update any quotations that you have already created. If you would like those quotations to be affected by the price updates, then simply go inside of that project and then simply recalculate it, which of course I'll show you how to do as we're working through. Right, tools is then the back end of the system. Okay, so this is where you're going to find your various things like your settings, company information. If you've got any group discounts stored, it's also where we can do a couple of import and export things to get a few bits and bobs out onto some spreadsheets to if you'd like to make any alterations that way, and then you can just import it back in. There's a few things we can do it for contractors' choice, assemblies, and discounts, basically. That's all back there in that tool settings. Search database allows you, if you know any product codes, to type that in here, and you'll be able to see if that's directly in our database. And it'll give you a few details like what discounts you have and labor times and a couple of bits and bobs like that. So that's all there for you if you're interested. You've also got the support button. If you ever need to get a hold of us, you can either give us a call on our telephone number, you can drop us an email, or you can go to our website. You can also submit suggestions here. So this would be for like features, functions, and product ranges that you'd like to see in the software. Just let us know via the suggestion form. And if you were another way to basically get our help if you need us, you can submit tickets to us, which is the same as emailing us realistically, but you don't have to come out of the system to do it. You can just click on submit ticket, and then you can just fill out the form there live on screen, and then we can just give you a call back and then help you with whatever it is you need assistance with. Okay, and then the only thing that is different if you are using the local version or the cloud version is whether you have that option up there up on the top right. So because I am on the cloud, I've got the cloud documents button. If you're local, you won't have that button there because you don't need it. But basically what that's going to do is open up the file explorer for your cloud storage. Okay, so this is my storage basically where I can upload all of my different drawings for when I do want to do my takeoff. It's also where we can save any documentation that we generate out of the software to get that moved back to personal machines, which once again I'll run through as and when we get to those stages. Okay. Right, so that's sort of it for up there along the top. Okay, so I'm hoping that gives you the basic idea of that. So let's go for new because we're going to create a new project from scratch. Now, this screen is basically split up into three different areas. Okay, so you've got your job header or job information, if that's a better way of thinking of it. You've then got your labor settings down here. And then you've got all this, which is show advanced options. Now, realistically, what I'm going to do for today is say, let's hide the advanced options. We're not necessarily going to need to have to go into that in too much detail, okay? And then what you should just be looking at then is basically your job information and your labor settings. That might be sort of across the screen. That's absolutely fine if it is. It just depends on your computer's resolution, okay? But overall, you should have the same sort of buttons that I have here, regardless of where they are sort of on your screen. So the only mandatory field that you have in this entire screen is actually the job code box. Okay, you're allowed up to 12 characters. You can use letters or numbers. It doesn't really like spaces or symbols, but it doesn't mind it if you want to use hyphens. That's absolutely fine. The job codes, we can actually get it to be pre-filled for you, so it can just roll on to the next chronological number each time you use the quotation. Or of course, you can just come in here at any point and then just type in exactly the job code that you need if you've already got job codes being logged on a system outside of EES. Okay, so just for today, then I can just give you a little bit of an example. So we'll do something like Q for estimate number, E for EES if I was doing it, and then my actual quotation number that I'm on at the minute, just as today's example. Okay. So you're going to fill in your job code, something along the lines of that, whatever you need to. And then the two boxes I would always recommend that you do fill out as well is the job name box and the client name box. Obviously, these are two pretty self-explanatory fields to fill in. So with this, we can just say this is EES training for today. And then the client name works off of a database, basically. So as soon as you basically come in here and you add a new customer in, that will then forever store then in your database alphabetically. So yourself and any of your colleagues would then be able to choose that client again in the future if you have to do another quotation for them. Just go and add new, and then you just fill out their information there on screen and press the big confirm button down there on the bottom right. That's all you got to do. You can always go back and amend any information if you ever need to as well, okay? But for today, I'm just going to choose EES. Now, we have got some additional optional features, okay, which is completely up to you if you want to use them. And if you do use them, it's only for internal benefits, okay? This information is never going to be shown to the client. The first one of that is the tender submission date. So if you would like to use it, simply just tick the box here. And then all you have to do is click here on your calendar drop-down menu. You set the date when the job needs to be submitted by. And the idea of what this is going to do is on the amend job screen, it will show you when the job was created, when it was last amended, and when the submission date is meant to be. And then what the jobs will do then is change color the closer and closer you get towards that submission date. So if the job is green, you've got loads of time, you're fine. If the job is amber, you're getting pretty close. And if the job is red, you pass the submission date, and you do have the capability to then go back into the submission date and apply and give it an extension basically, which will then reset the coloring system for you. And then once the tender is complete, you can tick that little box, and then that will then disregard the coloring system for you. So you can use that for your own benefit. It should be set up in a traffic light system, sort of red, orange, green, but we can set it up differently if you prefer different colors or anything like that. Okay, and you also have the parent code up here on the top right, which is I always describe this as a grouping code because that's effectively what we're going to be doing and using the box for. So job codes are unique for each individual product, but you can have the same parent code on multiple different jobs to help you categorize this better on the amend job screen. You might use it for a variety of reasons. Like I said, to group some jobs together, you might actually have quotation codes and then job numbers. Once you actually win the job, you could use this for that box. You could always come back in and fill it in later on, or for anything else that you think is going to be applicable for. Whatever you think that's useful for, use it. Like I said, that's not a mandatory box. You do not have to fill that one if you don't think it's going to be applicable for yourselves. All right, then we get down here to the labor side of things. So we'll just go from top to bottom. So the first one is travel distance. If travel distance or sort of cost per mile is something you would like to incorporate into your quotation, then simply just click here on the box on the side where it says miles away. Okay, just give that button a click. And then in here, what you've then got is your sort of radius table. But to fill that in, you just want to fill out these three boxes down here at the bottom, or at least the top one if you never actually go that far out that you need to lodge. So let's say that my cost per mile was 45p per mile. I do tend to have to go out and lodge. So what we'll do is we'll increase that value. I'm going to allow up to £400 for the week. So that's based off of a 4-night stay, and that's going to cover for the actual lodging itself, as well as also any sort of breakfast, lunch, and dinner that's needed. And then start point of lodge, well, we won't actually start lodging until we've surpassed about 75 miles. And then once you've filled in these 3 boxes down here at the bottom, you can see it's filled out the grid up here at the top. Simply just press the exit button. That will now be unlocked and you won't need to go into there for each project. That's now set up for you. And all you have to do is simply say how many miles away is the job, and the system is going to sort you out getting you there and back for each accumulated day that's built up from what we make in the estimate. Nice and easy. Very similar sort of button to the one below it. Daily additional costs. This could be parking, toll booth, congestion, lunch allowances, anything like that. If you need to allow, say, £10 for parking each day, then that's all you've got to do. You just got to type that one in there, and that should be that bit all sorted for you. Now, I'm hoping that your labor sort of drop down looks like this. Okay, so what mine is actually set to is to use one specific labor rate for the project. You can actually set the system to use multiple labor rates in a project if you would prefer to do it that way. But for today's demonstration, I'm just going to do it as one single labor rate. Obviously, if anyone does want to see it using multiple different labor rates, please just pop it through the Q&A or raise your hand, and then we can go through that bit separately. Okay, so what we have got here then is we've got a couple of different examples. So in here, I've got a sort of standard fitter, fitter that's out of town rate, an AC work that's sort of standard, and then overtime rate there as well. Okay, overtime or out of town, well, whatever way you would like to think of it, basically. So you can alter all of these descriptions to say whatever you need them to, and then simply just input your cost hourly rate over here on the right-hand side. Okay, you always want to input your cost because then we're going to mark it up to the selling rate when we get to stage 5 of the summary table later on. That's going to be the idea. Okay, so fill out as much of the rates as you think you would like to have in your options, then simply just press exit, and then you can just click down in your drop down and select which one you would prefer to use. If you want to use job specific rates, then always choose the top option as special labor rate that will allow you to type in a job specific labor rate in this box every single time when you go to use the system. Okay, so that should be relatively nice and easy for you. Now, occasionally you may need to do a material only job or an installation only job. So either no materials or no installation. Tick the box if it's relevant. If the job is just going to be a supply and fit, a sort of standard job, if you will, then don't worry about these 2 boxes. You can just move it forward. Even if you have some fix only aspects to the project, okay, but it's still primarily going to be supply and fit, then still do not worry about these 2 tick boxes. We can deal with all of that when we get to stage 2 on the takeoff screen, okay? So that's roughly about all you're sort of going to want to fill out on this screen basically at this point. And then you're just going to want to come down here to the bottom right and press continue. That's actually going to create the job for us now, okay? And we can always go back to the job header at any given point and we can change any of the information that's there on screen except for the job code. If you ever do need to change the job code though, just go and copy the job, put in the correct job code, and there you go. Now you've got the same job but with the amended job code, and then you can delete the original one if it was a mistake. So that's a very nice and easy way to get around that. Okay, now this is the takeoff screen where you're probably going to find that you spend the majority of the time when you are using the estimating software. Now this screen is split up into 3 different areas, and if we do have any electrical people with us on this session today, that the only difference the electrical users will see are the 8 categories over here. Obviously you can see that these are all mechanical biased. Electrical, you would have your versions like cable management, accessories, and so on. But other than that, the screen is going to be exactly the same. So what we've got in here is the gray area on the left-hand side, which is basically your item selection menu. Okay, we've got this middle bit here with these A, B, C's, and D's, and the pluses and the minus down there. That's for helping us build our section structure for the tender return. And then we have this grid over here on the right-hand side. We call this your examine grid because it's going to show where it's going to give us all of the individual lines that we've inputted inside each relevant section. And we're going to be able to see like the total hours, cost, and everything else accordingly for it. So the bit which I think that you are always going to want to tackle first is the middle part, the sectional structure with the A, B, C's, and D's. So what you basically want to do in here is, regardless if you're trying to copy what your client has given you or if you've got to create your own, I'm hoping regardless of what situation is, you will be able to create that. So what I'm going to do today is a little bit of a basic example because I do understand each project is different and the way it needs to be broken down is different. So what I'm going to do for today is just a couple of different services, and then within these different services I'm then going to just have different floors just to help me split up the job and organize it a little bit better. Okay, but I'm going service and floors. Really, so you could have service and drawing, service and units, or floors and services. It doesn't really matter. However you need to create it, you should always have the facility to do it here. So let's give you a little bit of an example. So my first section I'm going to have is my low temperature hot water, and I'm just going to press enter on my keyboard. That's going to and then lock that in. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to give this B sections, which are going to be the subsections. Okay, so I'm going to come down here to the bottom. I'm going to press B, and then I want to press plus. So now LTHW is now a folder with this new section inside of it. Now to rename this, left click it 3 times. Okay, 1, 2, 3. There we are. We can now rename that. And this is, like I said, going to be my floor numbers. So I'm going to have ground floor. I'm going to press enter, lock that in. Then to come down here to the bottom again. B is already highlighted. So all I need to do now is just hit the plus icon again. That's going to then allow me to have first floor. And press enter, get that locked in. And of course, I can add in as many different floors as I would actually need to in this particular list. But let's say that's all I've got for this today is ground floor and first floor. So now when I need to create this up for the next service, I've got 2 choices. Okay, I'm going to show you the long way and then the quick way. All right, so the long way would be to go back to A, press plus, then type in my new service again. So we'll go for hot water service this time, press enter. And then I'd have to do the B plus ground floor, B plus first floor again. So B plus ground floor, hit plus again for first floor. Okay, now that's going to get a little bit tedious constantly having to add in the floors. I know I only have 2, but obviously if you had like 6, you're not going to want to keep adding that in for each floor that you're dealing with, as an example. So what you can do to sort of speed up this process a little bit is once you've made one, and if it's going to have the same level of subsection structure, okay, so my next service is going to be the same, then what I can do to speed things up a little bit is I can right click either one of the 2 folder structures, and then I can just press the option down here that says duplicate. That will create me an identical copy of that section structure as it's done just there. And then all I have to do then is relabel this one to be my next service, which I think is a lot quicker process rather than having to create everything from scratch. Now, this is something I personally like to do. This might be different for yourselves. So you can either have the sections fully expanded or open, or you can have them fully collapsed, closed. Okay, some people like to just have them only open to the bits that they're looking at. I personally like to right click and keep and press this option here, keep globally expanded. So the section structure forever stays open. So I always can see the everything that's in the project at once. That's obviously going to be different for each one of us and however you would like to do your estimating. Okay, but that's how I make my section structure. Now, of course, we can break this down a lot further. I can go down to C levels, which is then going to be subsections of my floors. And then I could even go down even one step further and go down to D level sections if you would ever need to. But I'm hoping that the majority of the time for you is primarily just A level sections and then the B level sections to accompany it. Okay. Now, if you do a lot of student accommodation, new type classrooms, hospitals, where you have various sorts of room types, room builds, if that's a better way of putting it, okay, then you see here how I've obviously done it with floors. If these were room types rather than floors, so that was room type A and this was room type B, the sort of things that you can actually do to speed up your process for this. So I can say this is room type A, but within room type A, I don't just have one of them, I could have 24 of them. Okay, so now everything I put inside this exact section, the system will then multiply that up by 24 times 4 is later on. So then it can basically have to price one room rather than having to price all 24 of the exact same rooms. And then obviously you can set that individually for each one of your sections there. So that's always something that can be done to speed up your processes as well. I thought that might be worth a quick mention to you all. There we are. I'll just set that back to how it was though. There we go. Perfect. Right, and just one other thing as well, obviously, if you need to delete any additional sections that you have created by accident or ones you no longer need, then you can simply do that by either right-clicking the section and pressing the delete option down here at the bottom, or just have the section highlighted and come down here and press the minus symbol. Both will give you this "Are you sure?" warning, then you press yes, and that will then remove that section from your project for you. If you ever accidentally delete a section, just give us a call on our support line and we can sort that out for you, okay? Right, so Last thing with regards to the section structures, once again, I'm not sure if this is going to be applicable to all of you, but if you tend to typically find that you do very, very similar section structures, either for all of your projects or even just for set clients, once you've actually made a structure, then what you can do is you can actually save that as your own personal templates. Okay, so then and you can save as many different templates as you would like. So every time you start a job, rather than having to create all of this from scratch, you could always just import the structure template in. It's always going to be easier to rename and delete a couple of sections than it will be to create a brand new list of 30, 40 different ones. Okay, so just a little one there to keep that in mind. And sorry, final thing, and then I'll move on from the sections. Okay, all of this is all drag and drop. Okay, so if you ever need to get this into a different order from what you've initially created it in, it's all nice and easy. It's all drag and drop, very easy to move it all around. I always recommend that you grab the shape though, not the text. It just seems to work a little better in that way. If you try it yourself, I'm sure you see exactly what I mean. Okay, so now that we've made this section structure, this is where we're probably going to branch off in one of two directions realistically, okay? And that's whether we're going to be using the PDF takeoff or not, basically. So obviously, one method to get all the quantities into the system is to upload the drawings onto the PDF takeoff and do all of the live takeoff and import that information in. But you may find that that's not always how you have to price the jobs. So if the drawing has already been priced manually and someone or yourself is, you've got a list of quantities and you just have to sit here and input the quantities, that's then where you're going to want to use this sort of database that's over here on the left-hand side, okay? So the primary way that we envision you sort of navigating your way through the database, probably the best way to explain it, is by selecting one of the 8 categories, sorry, that we have set up in here for you. Okay, so if, for example, if you just needed some pipe work, then you just come on here and you go, I want to go into tube and fittings and valves. So you would then simply give that a press. That will then give you a list of all of the manufacturers and the ranges that we have in the system in relation to tube, fittings, and valves. Okay, simple enough. If you meant sanitary ware, you can easily flip back up to sanitary ware. It's nice and easy to navigate around. Okay, but tube and fittings of valve, and I'm going to say I need some steel tube, and I like to buy that from BSS. Okay, so I'm going to come down here and look in the list. We've got BSS copper. Here we are, BSS general steel tubes. That's the one we want. So I'm going to give that a click. That's then bringing it up here to steel tubes, and then I go in here and I have my variety of different different gauges, different specifications of steel tube, whether I want it to be plain ended, whether I wanted it to be a screwed and socketed tube, whether I want it in red, galv, black, schedule, whatever it is that you need, basically. So I'm just going to go in there and go, I need some galvanized, medium weight, screwed and socketed tube. So now that I've come in here, it's now displaying all of the various different items that we have in here. So in here, I've got all of the different versions from their sort of random ones of how they word it, or you've got your nice simple ones that you would use. What I recommend you to do is to get this organized a little bit nicer on your screen is try clicking here by product code to organize it. Okay, because by default it's probably trying to organize it via description. I find if you do it by product code, it should anyway organize it a little bit nicer of a structure for you. So putting all the items together is definitely going to make it a bit easier to navigate. So straight away from doing that, I've now got my list of tubes that I want. Okay, I don't need the 1/2-inch randoms or anything like that. I just need the box standard sort of steel tube. Now all of these should be divided back to a price per meter for you. Okay, so when we say that we need one, that is 1 meter, not one length. Okay, so do be careful with that. And you can see over here, I've got my different discount percentages all inputted. If those discount percentages were wrong, you can simply come over here and you can overtype it, click enter, and then the system will ask you, are you doing this as a one-off just for this particular project, or would you like to update this onto your master discount table because that's actually your true and correct discount. So I'll save this onto the master discount, press confirm. And there we are. So that one's now in at 60%, while the rest are still there at 50. But if we wanted to say that everything in this entire block here is all the same discount percentages, okay? Because they're all in the same product group of D5. What we could do is then click on one of the discount boxes, and rather than just simply overtyping the line, if we just come down here and press change discount, we can then change the group discount instead. And you might find that that's a little bit easier for you to maintain. Do you know, if you came in here and none of these had discounts, that's definitely going to be your quicker way of doing this, okay? So that's always something that you can do as well if you prefer to do that. But once you've come into here anyway, just you're going to want to input your meterages of your various different sizes that you need. Obviously, if you want to put in half meters or anything like that, the software is completely fine with you inputting the decimals on the linear items. Okay, so now we've done that, we're just going to press confirm, and that's now going to put it into the highlighted section that we are in. There we go. So it's there, built up on screen. We can see what line numbers they are, description of the items. Oh, sorry. How many of them that we have, either per item or per meter, depending on what the product is. Our install time per meter. Now, this is done off of decimal hours. I'm hoping that you're all familiar with decimal hours, but just in case anyone isn't, how you work it out. So that's 0.3 of an hour. So just literally get your calculator up, 0.3, and then all you do is you times that by 60, and that's then going to give you the answer displayed back in minutes. That's saying that's 80 minutes per meter. Then same thing if you want to work out minutes back into decimals. So say we had 22 minutes and you wanted to know how to put that into decimals, you simply then just divide that by 60. So 60 minutes to the hour, and press equals, and then that will give you then the decimal time that you could input there into the system. Just for anyone who was unsure, if you've never dealt with decimal time previously in the past. Then here you can see the total labor cost. Now that is going to be inclusive of the daily additional cost, the hourly rate, and the travel distance if you have used all three of those boxes, okay? Then you've got the trade or list price, if that's a better way of referring to it. Then your discount percentages, and then we title this as unit material cost, but that's effectively your net rate per meter. And then that is then giving you the total material cost and then the grand total of the labor and the material there. Okay, so nice and easy. You can see that very much on screen. If you've mistyped a quantity wrong, you can simply come there and you can overtype it. It's very easily adjustable. Okay. But then if you realized, oh, I've put these items inside the wrong section, absolutely fine. Just get the items, right click it, and you've got all the right click functionality that you would tend to typically expect to have. Copy, cut, paste. You can also delete your items. You can delete them in bulk. You can restore any deleted lines if you've accidentally deleted them. You can tell items to do find and replace. You can also duplicate it and tell it how many times you would actually like the item to be duplicated if you'd prefer to do it that way. So I could say duplicate that 4 times, press confirm, and it gives you all your items there up on screen. Okay, so there's quite a lot there on your right click function. But honestly, if you just need to cut, copy, and paste, you can use right click functions, or you can use the keyboard shortcuts if you know what they are, sort of Control V to paste it in. Rather than having to go right click and paste as new. It's completely up to you on however you'd like to sort of use the system. But that's the main way that we envision you going through your database to find the different items. Occasionally, you are going to end up at a stage where you can't necessarily find an item that you're looking for. And if that is the case, then we recommend perhaps using the advanced search function. So the advanced search takes away EES's input of those 8 different categories, okay? So then we can just give you a big list of absolutely everything that we have in the database, and you can search via the manufacturer and then through the items range to then find the specific items you need, then simply give it a double click, and then say how many of these that you would actually need, basically. So that's very nice and sort of straightforward, basically, to sort of navigate around that. If you prefer and you want to look up items via description, there is the description or code search within the advanced search box, which is the second tab in, but I don't recommend you use that one. Instead, just use this search box up here. It's the exact same thing, but you haven't got to click an extra button to get into it. So then if you're just looking for some sort of M10 sort of rod, nuts and bolts and stuff like that, you can just write M10 up there in the search box, come in here, and then you can start sort of filtering that down. So I could then just say nuts, and then that's going to show me that every M10 nuts that the system can find for us. And then we can easily then go through, select the one that we would sort of prefer to use, simply say how many of these that we've got, and that will then build everything sort of up on screen for us again. Now, this one actually has flagged up here with a warning triangle. Okay, so I've got a warning triangle up here, and it's about this yellow item that's just down here at the bottom. If you did want to do this, okay, this is something that's a little bit optional, all right? Obviously, that's quite a. I've only got 22 items in there at the minute. Not too hard to look around and see which one it is that's actually flagging up the message. But obviously, if you've got hundreds of lines in there, you're not going to want to filter and look all the way through. So what you can do is you can right click up here and you can go to customize columns. Now mine was already turned off, so yours might be turned on, yours might be turned off. Just worth giving it a check, but you can turn on warning triangles, as well as the ability that you can actually turn on product codes for specific items if you're interested in seeing the product codes as well. Then just press confirm. That will update there on your screen for you. So I've got this column here that shows me what line actually has the issue. So I can just straight away, I can sort of filter by that, and that would then move that to the top of the list for us. And then here I've also got it now show me the product codes, and obviously you can then take those product codes directly to the wholesaler, and there should be some direct matches there for you. But that's completely up to you. Like I said, you can go in here and you can turn these on and off as you please. You can also turn off some of the other options if you're not really too interested in that. But this is the sort of normal for which I work with: line numbers, description, quantity, breakdown of labor, then breakdown of material with a total cost. But obviously that's up to you as individuals, however you'd like that to be set. Okay. Now, with those warning triangles, my honest advice is don't worry about them at this stage, okay? The next stage, stage 3, is going to grab all of those warning triangles, put them all on one page so we can deal with it all there and then, okay? Now, occasionally you're going to find you're still going to struggle to find it, all right? Or you just want to make an allowance for something along those lines. That's then when you would use a non-standard. This might also be referred to as a direct entry or a free type, if you ever heard that sort of terminology before. So just give that a click. You have to select one of our sort of main categories. We have given you an additional miscellaneous category if nothing seems to sort of fall in suit. But say I needed a very specific pump and it wasn't in the software. Okay, so I'm going to give that a double click, and then all I have to in here is just type in a rough description of the item. So just for today, we'll just say it's a bespoke pump. All right, nice and easy. Okay, obviously you can be as detailed as you want in that description. I need 2 of them. They take about an hour to fit each. I don't know the trade price and what discounts I get. I just know that I pay about £200 for these pumps each. I then just do that, press confirm, and that builds it up there up on screen, and it does show it as a different color. So visually, you know that's an item that you have manually inputted rather than an item that you have got out of the database. Okay. All right then. All right. So sort of last 2 things then with this one. You've also got subcon specials. So for any subcontract work, okay, or large specialist quotations, please put them through as subcon specials. It will seem very similar to the non-standard when you are using it, but it's going to show up as a purple line color. The whole purpose of this is going to show up as a completely separate cost at the end of the project. So it's going to have its own little category for markup. So for today's example, we'll say that I've got some ventilation that needs to be done. Now, me personally, I don't actually install any of the ventilation. I always sub that out. So I'm going to sub that out to my preferred sort of contractor. They're going to come back and give me a quotation. I'm going to want to come into here, and I'm looking for a ductwork or a ventilation category. I'm not seeing one in the list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. I'm going to press add new. I'm then going to scroll to the bottom of this list, and I'm going to add one in there, okay? I might call it ductwork, might call it ven. You can call it whatever you would like to, basically, because these categories are here for you, okay? So there we are. I'm just going to call it ductwork, press exit. Now I've got ductwork in my list. Wonderful. I'm going to press confirm, and then I'm just going to say this is my ductwork quote. I've got one of them. Requires 8 hours of supervision from my team as well, and that cost for all of that is a quote of £6,000. I'm going to press confirm, and that sits in there as a purple line color. So once again, you can tell that's different. Like I said, it seems the same on this page, but when we move on to the next stages, it will do something different, okay? You also have labor only, which is the same as going non-standard and then labor only, basically, where you can just type in some additional time for like removal, strip out, additional handling time, anything along those lines. And the most interesting one on here is then going to be the assemblies button for you. So what assemblies are really powerful, really helpful. But what it allows you to do is group items together. If you've ever used any other estimating softwares before, they might refer to these as kits or composites, if you ever heard that sort of terminology. So I've got a couple of examples here for you to give you a rough idea. So we've got some here made for tube fittings and valves, and then you get to do all of this indexing yourself, okay? So you get to decide exactly with the main, sub, and the descriptions here. So if I go into copper, as you can see, I've got some copper sort of drops or risers, if that's an easy way to refer to it for you. And I've also got some express flow and return ones set up as well, okay? So what this is actually going to do is it's going to do 2 lots of 15mm copper tube for me, and it's also going to do my couplings. You can incorporate additional things into that, so you can get it to work out all of your bracketry and everything else. So then if I knew that I was doing this for the low temperature hot water, and I'd gone round, I'd done my measurements manually, and I knew exactly how many meters of sort of 15 mil I needed, I can just come into here and go, right, okay, I need 20 meters of flow and return, press confirm. That's now worked out. I've got basically 40 meters, and it's worked out my couplings for me. The couplings will be worked out on decimals, so occasionally it will say you need about 0.6. This is up to you. You can easily just go up to there and round that up to the 7 or drop it down to 6. Obviously, you will know best. Okay, so this is definitely going to make inputting in a lot quicker because you can get it to incorporate multiple different lines at once rather than having to go find each one and duplicate it and everything else, right? Assemblies are really worth your time in actually creating these. You can do it for a lot more for than just pipe runs. You can make it for any sort of fan coil arrangements, radiator valve sets, what sort of things we can do. Water closet connections, sink connections. There's just a couple of list things I can think of off the top of my head as an example for you. If you really, really wanted to get into the welded side of things, you can get it to generate the exact amount of flanges, the specific size nuts and bolts that you would need to bolt the flanges together, and then have separate nuts and bolts for having slotted channel and rod and everything else going up there to do your hangers for you. You can go really detailed into these, okay? That's about as much as I'm going to sort of touch on these so much for today. Obviously, if anyone is interested in assemblies, obviously let us know. We can either run through that at the end, or if you've got a one-to-one session coming up, you know, make sure you bring up that you want to know how to make all of these assemblies, okay? But they are really powerful tools, really worth looking into. It may take you 5 minutes to create one once, but that's 5 minutes you will never have to spend again looking for these items or having to sit there and manually just work out the math of it for yourself, okay? Right, so that gives us a rough idea on how we could add in items and how we use this sort of screen. The only one I've not touched on is contractor's choice. That is basically the same as non-standard, but you can basically store it in here for future use again, okay? So you can actually just build up multiple different items that we don't have or allowances that you want to make and have that stored in your database rather than having to write it out each time using the non-standard. You can also incorporate contractor's choice items, mix that with our database to then input that into assembly. So what some people do is they'll use our pipework and couplings, obviously a little bit like the ones I was just showing you, and then they'll put in a non-standard line to work out the bracketry just as a basic allowance. Some people will go all in and they want to do it to every nut and bolt. Some people just want to do an allowance per point, and that's absolutely fine. The system allows you to do it in whichever way you want to do it as the estimator. Right, so what I'm going to do now is just switch over to our PDF takeoff software. I'm going to show us how we can then use what we've learned from this to actually do our takeoff, and then how we import all of those quantities then directly into our estimating so we don't have to manually sit there and type the numbers in. So we'll just switch over to the PDF takeoff now. So this is the PDF takeoff software, or I'll just show you that's this icon here. I'm hoping everyone here today does have this system as well. If not, then you get to have a little bit of a look of an idea of what it does, okay? Now, I am on the cloud version of the system, so I will have to upload my drawing. So this is my personal desktop now. It's not on the cloud or anything like that. And I've got this folder of PDF documents here. So all we have to do is upload, right click it, we're going to copy it, then come back down here. It should easily be able to switch back onto the software by clicking on this little sort of blue monitor that you should have down here at the bottom, okay? That's now loaded us back in. So I just want to click on my file explorer. I want to go to where I want, so documents and then drawings, perfect. And then what I'm going to do, I've already uploaded these here previously, but I'll just quickly delete those. You just right click, paste it. That's then going to copy it then from your personal machine and upload that onto the cloud platform. So we can see there, now that's uploaded there. I've got my different drawings. Okay, so uploading and downloading from the cloud is very, very easy. Primarily, we do it with copy and paste, but we can put links to your sort of servers and stuff there if that's going to sort of help you out a little bit more. Personally, I think copy and paste is easy enough, especially if you have dual screens. You can copy on one screen, paste on the other. It's nice and straightforward. Anyway, let's get back to actually doing the takeoff then. So now that we've got the drawings uploaded, obviously if you've got the local version, you can skip that step. Right, so all we've got to do is come up here to the top left and you just want to press open, or you can go file and open drawings, the exact same button, there is no difference. Give that a click. That's then going to open up your little folder. All right, perfect. And here we are, we've got some drawings. So I've got some mechanical ones here that we can use. I'm going to hit open on that. Okay, that's now loaded up the drawing onto the screen, okay? So to drag myself around currently, I can use my left click, okay? To pan myself around. If I want to zoom in, I roll the mouse wheel towards the monitor and it zooms in wherever your mouse is pointing, okay? And it's quite sensitive, okay? So you don't need to spin the mouse loads to get it to move. Just roll it a little bit, wait for it to zoom, recenter your mouse, and then zoom again, okay? The longer you spend on it, the more fluid you'll become on it and the easier it's going to be to move it around, okay? But if you are really struggling with the zoom in and out function, that can be turned off in your preferences menu, just up here at the top, allow mouse wheel to zoom. You can turn that on and off as you please. I do also recommend making sure that your auto save is already turned on. I do believe by default it should be, but just in case, always worth a check. Okay, so first thing we are going to want to do upon opening the software, okay, we're going to want to check and set the scale. So up here at the top, we do tell you what the actual paper size is of the PDF document. So the software reads the parameters of the PDF and works out what the size is. So this is an A1, right? So let's go check the legend and see what it says. So it says down here that this is also an A1, 1 to 100. So that means there's a good chance that the scale of 1 to 100 is going to be correct. So I'm going to set it, but always check it, okay? Find something on the drawing that you know the distance of: a scale bar, kitchen countertop, roof tile, or a doorway. I'm going to use a doorway for today. So I've got this standard looking doorway. And I want to come up here and grab this tool, the ruler tool. If you hover over it, it says measure distance, but it's nice and easy which one the ruler is. It's the one that looks like one, okay? So just click on that item, then come here to the door, left click at one side of the door, okay? Then just take your mouse over to the other side. Now it's click, it's point-to-point clicks. It's not drag, okay? So click once, click twice. Then click on the other side of the door, and it's telling me that that distance there is about 820 mil, which sounds about right for a door. We're making sure it's not saying it's 400 mil or 2 meters long, basically. So there we are. That's fine. Perfect. If that was wrong, do this. Click on your scale drop down, press custom, click here on these three dots, measure the door again, or whatever it is that you're measuring, okay? Left click at one side of it, left click at the other side of it. Now tell the software what that distance should roughly be in millimeters. And then from that, it will then create you a scale. So here it says that that's actually 101. So I know I've slightly gone over with my click. So I'm going to round that up or down wherever it needs to be to get it to the correct scale. Then once again, you can go check it around and everything else, okay? Right, so now we've got the scale set up, we're ready to go. Find on the drawing, okay, wherever you would like to start from. There is no right or wrong from the software's perspective. It's just where you would like to do it as the estimator. Once again, you will always know best, okay? So get yourself into a good position. So I'm going to go sort of about here, right? I'm going to start off on this 32 and I'm going to go left down here, okay? That's my little plan. So here, the second row, okay? The second row in here is your item sort of choice. Now, if you do notice, that is just the left-hand side of the estimating. It's actually even in the same order. It just goes down the screen, where here it goes across the screen. So your advanced search, contractor's choice, your database options, assemblies, non-standards, subcon specials, and labor onlys, and comment lines if you need those as well. Okay, but just before I get too started with it, I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to select what color highlighter I want to use. Red's fine for me this time, but obviously if you're following a red run, don't use red. Pick a nice contrasting color, okay? Then below that, say what it is we're doing. So we're doing the low temperature hot water today. And then what I'm going to do, because I know I've got some assemblies created for this, I'm going to use my assemblies today. If not, then you will be using your database, I would have thought. But I'm going to go for the assemblies. So assemblies, and then I'm going to go tube and fittings. This is going to be done in steel. I need a drop and a riser, and I need some, that's in at 35. Should this be at copper, sorry? No, I think I've mistyped that one. That's meant to be 32 mil. That's where that's gone wrong, but not to worry. You can always press view. There we are, 32 mil. There we are. That's absolutely fine. So I'm going to press confirm on this. And then all I'm going to do is just one left click there. And it's giving me that symbol there, okay? If the symbol isn't big enough, just undo what you've done, okay? Up the scale to something like 1.2 or 1.6, okay? And then just try again, see if you're happier with the, see if you're happier with that outcome. There we are, a bit big, a bit too big, but I'll drop that one down as long as you get the idea, okay? Now into assemblies, flow and return, so I don't need to do this takeoff twice or duplicate my measures, okay? That's why flow and return is going to be that's why assemblies are such a helpful thing for you, so you don't need to measure everything twice, okay? So what I've got here, so I am going to have the problem when I get down to the 15s, but we'll deal with that in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to go for the 32. I'm going to press confirm. I just left click here, left click, right click. That then locks that in for me. I can then go back onto my assembly again because I've got another riser there. Switch over to my risers, 32, confirm, one click just there. Perfect. That's that bit done. Now, I, of course, do need to import my bend icons there. It's up to you. You can now go into your database, go find your bends and input them on now, which is absolutely fine. You can do it that way if that's what you want to do. Or what we could have done is actually just carried on going down, doing the measurements of the linear runs, and then coming back after the fact, and then start going through and inputting the various different fittings and everything that we would need. Okay, but I'm just going to come in here just to sort of show you this is where I come in here to get my fittings. I'm going to use crane. I'm going to want some T's, and then I come into here and you can see I've got all the different T's. Once again, I'm going to hit product code just to kind of organize that a little bit better for myself. So then I can just look down in the list and try to find the one that I need. Now I need the 32, I need a 2520, which is this one just here. So I'm going to press confirm. And basically what I'm going to do is one click for the flow, one click for the return. That's done. Now back into the assembly menu, I'm then going to go for my flow and return. That is that 20. Yep, so there we are. So 20. So I'm going to confirm that. Left click, right click to confirm that one in. Once again, I could now stop. I could do the 15 T's and everything else, or I might just go back into the database and then go find the next size that I would need and then carry on doing the runs. Like I said, that's completely up to you. You're going to know what's best. Now, I am a little bit conscious on time today, so what I'm going to quickly do is just show you how to deal with pipe work when it's flow and return, but you don't have the assembly created, okay? Because I think that's going to be within your interest. So I'm just going to quickly come in here. I'm just going to choose some steel pipe work, steel tube, medium, screwed and socketed. Yeah, we'll use this one for the sake of what we're doing. All right, there we are. There's some 15. Okay, that will do. And we'll just press confirm. All right. So all you have to do is pay attention to what part number you're on before you start doing it. Okay. So I'm on 7. So now I'm just going to left click, right click. Okay. So that's those 2 runs there. If I want now, I can go input the bends before I do this, okay, and everything else, or I could just do it now. So I want to highlight the lines that I've done, which are these 2. I'm then going to press RPT. I'm going to do a click there. That then repeats everything that I've just done. So as you can see there, that's been doubled up. So I'll just do that again once more to show you a little bit more down here at the bottom, and I'll do it with a couple of more lines this time for you all. So I'm going to go into the database again. I'm going to choose the same item. I'm going to want them 15. There it is. Confirm. All right. So we're on part number 11 when we start doing this one. So left click, right. Left, right. Okay. There we go. Once again, I can do the bends, I can do the T's, I can do all of that if I want to. Now, what I need to do, because this one actually is quite a few, I'm going to extend my grid so I can see a little bit better. There we go. All right. I can see obviously where I was before. And I can now see which ones I need now. So I need from 12 to 16. I'm then going to send the arrows back, which has still left them highlighted. Now press RPT, one click there, done. Flow and return has now been done. That's just a very quick, almost a cheat way of doing it if you do not have flow and return assemblies created for yourself. Very quick way of just duplicating what it is that you've done. Okay. Then when it actually comes around to counting up the radiators, the valves, or anything like that, what I did with the T-bends and the risers, where we've just gone around and we just click everywhere we need them, that's all you'd need to do. So let me just quickly give you an example with the radiators. So I'll go database, radiators. I want Stelrad, Elite, K2. For the sake of this, they're all the same sort of smaller radiators. So I'm just going to press confirm. And all I do is just left click on each radiator. What you can do to make it a little bit easier visually is you can change your colors, write the same service back in, okay, and then maybe count up each radiator with a green mark. So then you know when you get round to these particular fittings, you know that you've actually done the takeoff for them already because it's on a slightly different color. Use colors as a visual cue for yourself so you can tell where you've been and what you've done. Okay, change colors frequently. To the software, they don't matter too much. The colors are there basically so you know what you're doing. The software only cares about the sort of service names that you're putting in realistically. That's the important bit for the software. So once you've gone through and you've done your drawings, I'm sure you all just don't want to see me doing a pipework drawing, okay? Once you've finished it though, and you want to move all the information across into your estimating, just make sure you are in the job you want it to be inputting, and you've got to be on the takeoff screen where we are now. Go back to your PDF and you want to press this button up here, export to estimating. When you click it, it should come up with your jobs code and your jobs name. That's how you know it's correct. If it's not, you give us a call. But press confirm. But when you do, just keep an eye on these boxes here. As long as they're ticked, that means it's successfully sent the information. And then all you have to do is go back to the estimating, press import PDF, and then look, there we are. So I've got my two different ones there. So I've got my two different ones for my low temperature hot water, and I've also got my radiator count ones there. So I want both of these to go into my ground floor. And then all I have to do now is press import. I can press exit, and that's now inputted all of those items there on screen for me, as you can see. Now, admittedly, if we hadn't done flow and return, but we knew all of this needed to be doubled, you know, we could go into there, we could copy it, we could paste it to duplicate it that way. We could do the highlight, right click, duplicate trick. There's lots of different ways that we could get this all built in, okay? But that just gives you a couple of ideas. I do believe the best way to do it is the assemblies box, okay? So what I'm going to do now is say that we're sort of finished with actually what we're doing within our estimate. Okay, so what I'm just doing now is just quickly just populating all of this just with a couple of different items just to give us just a couple of different prices. Okay, we'll change that to 5 like that. That'll do. Okay, so once you finish your project, regardless if you got warning triangles, press continue. That's going to move you forward to stage 3. Now, realistically, all those warning triangles were about 3 items, and the 3 items just are missing the discounts. So all I would do is I would generate this as a report. I'd send this off to my wholesaler. I would then find out what my discounts actually are, because this is all just a printable page. So it's definitely just going to be easier rather than having to write all the codes down. Find out what discounts they are, come back in here and then just type them in. But when you type in discounts, please make sure you go minus and then type in what the discount is, okay? And when you hit enter, it does ask you, is this just a one-off or is this permanent, okay? So I'm just going to say that's permanent. We'll say this one's 40. Once again, permanent. But this time on Stelrad on the radiators, they're offering to give me, because I'm buying 121 of them in my particular instance, they're offering me a 70% discount just for this one transaction. Okay, so I'm going to put that in and say this is for the job only and press confirm. There we are. I've now fixed everything on screen. So I'm going to press continue to move forward on to the next stage. Now, sorry guys, usually the session was going to go on till 3. I've clearly got overexcited in some particular areas and gone into a little bit too much detail, so the session will run a little bit over. I do appreciate you sort of hanging around for it if you can. Realistically, we've got about 10 minutes left. That's about it. Okay, right. So once you've calculated the project, it throws you to the summary table. Okay. If you then realize you forgot something or missed something, you're going to want to go back to the takeoff screen and then move forward again. But when you do, you're going to be basically you're going to run into these options. Okay. Greeted, that's what I wanted. You're going to be greeted with these options, okay? So retain material prices basically means that the old material costs will stay exactly the same as they were, and only new items will be calculated. Manual update means it's going to physically show you what prices are different, what they were currently to what they are, and you get to choose whether you'd like to continue to use the previously calculated material cost or the new calculated material cost. Automatic will just make everything come up to the most up-to-date trade prices. And if you press do not calculate, it would not incorporate any changes that you've made on the takeoff screen, nor would it change any of the prices of the materials that were already calculated. There is a time and a place for each one of these buttons. If you ever do press the wrong one, don't panic, ring us straight away. Don't come back and click another one to try fix it. We can just revert it for you. Just ring us. It takes, realistically, it's about a 3-minute phone call to get you back up and running, okay? Right, so summary table. So there's multiple different ways to use the summary table. I'm just going to show you how to read the summary table and then show you 2 methods on how you could do your markup, okay? So you want to start off down here at the bottom. So you can see we've got £20 per hour. We've then got 968 hours in. Of course, if you want to round that up or anything, please, by all means, feel free to. You can overtype it. So 20 times by the £968. We come up here to your site labour, and up there we've got £23,000. It has also included a total allowance of nearly £4,000 for daily additional expenses and fuel costs from what we put in at the start of the job. That is also incorporated in this figure, if anyone's good at math and figured that one out very quickly. Right, then we've got our breakdown of our different material types. Once again, if we have any electrical users here today, this will be exactly the same, but rather than tube and fittings, you'd have cable management, accessories, so on. Okay, so you know exactly how much to spend on tube, fittings and valves, rads, pumps, accessories, and my subcontract quotation. Okay, so then you can then move down your list. So you've got all your cost here. You can apply individual markup percentages here if you want to mark up materials and labor separately. Then you've got your totals. That's the total of everything. Then this figure can be affected by overhead, profit, builders, and then we can add on things like your preliminaries, prime cost, provisional sums, and then get you finished up with a gross contract cost. So like I said, the two ways people tend to typically use the system, okay, and the two ways I'm going to show you is either using the on-cost percentages up here or using the overhead and profit percentages down here. If you're going to mark up everything by the same percentage, then you will want to use the overhead and profit box, or maybe just the profit box or just the overhead box. But as an example, I'll say 10% overhead and then 20% profit. So it's took that as my cost of the job, added 10% on, add those two values together. We've then taken another 20% from there, which is our 12 grand there, to then get us out to the £77,000 just there that we can all see. Okay, like I said, alternatively, what you might want to do is actually split your markup a bit more, so certain materials don't get marked up as much as others. So we can come up here to the top and we can see straight away I've got a high amount of tube and fittings. We just might go in with that at 15%. Then with these ones, we're a bit lower on the radiators, pumps and accessories. We might go in at 20, 20 and 20. Then subcontract, because we don't want it to be obvious that we've overly marked up the subcontract quotation. I was going to go to my breakdown tab, which then allows you to write in the on cost. Okay, if you try to do it here, it doesn't let you. Okay, you've got to go into breakdowns because you could have multiple subcontract quotes in here. Go to the same box. I'm going to say 5% on that one. There we go. And I'm going back to my summary table. And then with the labor, you can either fill it in here at the on-cost percentage, or you can fill it out down here in the selling rate box. These two boxes are linked. If you adjust one, it adjusts the other. So if I say 30%, then that says, oh, that's a 50% mark. If I say how much is a 45% markup, that says that's £29. So you see there about the two boxes being linked, which would then mean that's your cost, that's how much you're making, that's what you're selling out at, and then you would ignore overhead and the profit box. Okay. Like I said, there is no right or wrong way of using this one. Just be careful you don't just do double markup up here and down here. There is times where you may need to put a few percentages here, there, or everywhere. But if you're ever unsure, just give us a call, okay? And then if you ever do need builder's discount, by default, it is a fraction still. So 1/39 is the correct allowance if you need to remove 2.5%. If you want it as a percentage box, we can change it to a percentage box. But please do remember, adding on 2.5% and removing 2.5% will make you come out short, okay? You would actually need to allow something like 2.5641 or so, something along those lines is actually the correct percentage, because otherwise you always cut yourself short. Right, so that's it with the builders. Then that gets us down to the preliminaries, prime costs, and provisional sum boxes. Okay, they're just two tabs up here along the top. If you need prime costs and provisional sums, come into here, overtype the boxes to what you want it to say, drop your amounts in over there. Nice and easy. Same thing with the preliminaries. You can just overtype our descriptions, or you can use our descriptions if that's easier for you. Put your amounts in over here. This is the fixed cost column. You can do it by a percentage uplift if you prefer, or you can actually do it as weekly rates and number of weeks needed. And what you can do is you can actually just use some out of here and then some out of the fixed cost box as well, if that's something that you would prefer to do. You can pick a mix between the way that you want to do it. Now, just as a nice little reminder with prelims, if you need it to show, make sure you untick this spread box, okay? Okay, because if that's ticked, it's going to hide it across everything. You can be specific where it's blending those rates, but if you do need it to show, just make sure you untick the box. That will then get you all the way down to your gross contract costs, which means you're finished, which means you're only really left at looking at two things, the printouts. Now, I say two because we split the printout into two different ways, okay? We have reports and we have bills. Reports are for you, that's internal documentation, and then you have bills, that's for the client, that's your external documentation. So select reports here. This is all internal documents for you to use. This can show you exactly how much profit you're making in each individual area. You know exactly how much markup's going on materials versus exactly how much is going on labor. It can give you lots of detail. If you want to print out the summary table, that's summary table main. If you want a list of all the materials that you've used with the product codes but no prices sent to wholesaler for a quote, you'd want something like materials summary unpriced. And I'll quickly just bring that one up on screen for you all. So just tick the ones you want to see and hit preview and export, and they'll just come up in order from top left to bottom right, okay? So you can generate more than one at once. Right, so this is now the material summary. Let me just zoom in all for your benefit. So I've got tube and fittings, I've got all the product codes. You see how it's collated all of my tube for me. It didn't do it there because I must have used a medium at some point and then a heavy by accident. So that actually might be an instance then of where you go back into the job, find that heavy line, swap that out for medium, and then recalculate the projects. I'm sure that would bring the price down a little bit, because I'm sure heavy is definitely going to be a lot more than medium. Okay. And we do tell you that this is all in meters as well. So it's not like the wholesaler is going to get confused and think that you're asking for 132 lengths. It'll be down for them to decide on how to supply it to you. Okay, there you go. I'm just going to press cancel to that one, which brings us back to here. Press exit, back to here. Now for the final printouts, the one for the clients, the external ones. You just want to press continue towards your final stage of bills. Okay, there's quite a few options back here that you can choose from. Realistically, if you want to send a summary out, you're either going to want section, tender, or totals. For today, I'm just going to display you the tender summary one, which I think is personally the best one. We're also going to generate a standard quantified schedule of rates just to demonstrate that to you. We always advise that you generate it and look at it. We know you're not going to send it out straight away, but we'd always advise that you take a look and make sure you're happy with your rates. You can also set up draft versions of documents in the back end of the system. So right now, we could bring up the draft list of your cover letter and you can make alterations to it just this time for this particular quotation. If that's something you're interested in, just let us know and I'll show you how you set all this up. But if that's all you want, just a tender summary and a schedule of rates, tick them, come down here, hit preview and export, and that'll load them up on screen for us. So the first one is the summary. This is the one I think you will send to the client, or the one you want to copy your information off to fill in your sheet or their sheet if that's what you're going to be doing, right? And what we can do, we can get your company letterhead to display up here at the top. Your client's name and address would display here. We can get the job name to be displaying there. We can have two additional titles which appear around here. And then you can see here, we've got cold water, ground floor price, cold water first floor price, and then a subtotal of what the cold water is. And then that's the same then for all of my different services, except for ventilation, because that was just one large quote. And then we've got our total contract cost. Now to move us on to the next document, all you do is come down here and you press next. Okay, so that moves on to the next document, not the next page. Okay, now this one's going to load up the full quantified schedule of rates. Like I said, I know you're not going to need it when you're sending out the quote, but still, just always have a look, okay? Make sure you're happy with your rates. Once again, we can get the same details up there on the top, but then you see here, CWS ground floor, it's then giving us a nice quantified breakdown of all the items we've done, what their supply and fit rates are, and what the total cost of that is, and then the total cost of that section. As you can see, that's then going to that's going to continue to break down all the way down the quotation. If you need to turn the page, use these ones up here along the top, by the way. That's going to go all the way down. There we are, until we finally get to the bottom of the quote where it's showing us what the grand total is. Now, for you to print or save any bill or any report, so any of the documentation from the software, okay, just come down here at the bottom, click on your preferred file format, PDF, Word, or Excel. And if so, it's Excel, we give you three different options: CSV, XLS, and data only. Data only is the best one for just copying and pasting the information out of, by the way, and then two different options for the words. But PDF, nice and easy, just hit export, which basically means save. That's then going to save into the system, okay? So I'm just going to save it here into my import export folder, okay? So I'm going to click save. That's then going to pop up on screen for me. So now I can just take that, I can right click it, I can copy that. I can then just minimize out of the clouds. Now I'm back to my personal desktop and I can just right click and I can paste that in there. Wonderful. I've got that there. I can open that up, and now you can see that this is all here. Now, I always find, all right, it might just be the way that I look at it. I always think that the preview always looks like things are slightly blurred or pixelated. But then I find as soon as I export it out of the system, out of the preview screen, you can then see obviously that there's nothing wrong with these at all. All the text in there absolutely fine. But obviously, if you would like to make any adjustments to this sort of thing, export it out into Word, so then you can make all of the alterations. Change it to the font that you want, move your lines all around if that's something that you'd be a little bit more interested in. There's of course a few things you can do in the system, like if you didn't like the grid lines, for example, that's an optional tick box. We can turn that off. Same with the page numbers. But that's the basics of EES. Okay, both the estimating and the PDF takeoff. Sorry that we did run over by about 10 minutes today. I do appreciate you all sort of staying around for as long as you can. But that's all of the basics, okay? So now we can do a little bit of a Q&A sort of questions at the end. If anyone does have any specific questions they would like to go over, there is a Q&A section, you can type it in, or if you find it easy, you can just raise your hand and you can just speak to the group. It can either be over things that we have gone over today and you want me to recap on, or it could be about something else you completely see in the system, or any other questions that you do have, just please feel free to pop them through or raise your hand. There's no need to be shy. I'll leave the room open for a couple more minutes just to allow any questions to come in if there are any. But if you don't have any questions and you don't want to hang around, then thank you all for attending. Hopefully, we'll see you on the next EES webinar. Please do bear in mind that, of course, you can have one-to-one online training sessions, or we can do in-house training at our office in Leicester. If you'd prefer that as well, you just have to reach out to us and let us know what's going to be best for yourself. But thank you all again for attending. Like I said, I'll leave the session open for a few minutes, so you can ask any questions if you do have any. Otherwise, other than that, feel free to leave, and thank you all again.